Winter in the mountains has always had a certain allure. The crisp air, snow-covered peaks, and the thrill of skiing. That's exactly what Anna, Jack, Maria, Liam, and Sarah were chasing when they planned their trip. They booked a remote cabin nestled deep in the Rockies, a cozy getaway far from the chaos of their everyday lives. But none of them could have imagined how their trip would turn into a waking nightmare, one that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The drive to the cabin was long and winding. Snow had already begun to fall lightly, dusting the trees and road with a pristine white layer. They stopped at a small gas station near the base of the mountain to fill up and grab snacks. The attendant, an older man with weathered skin and piercing eyes, seemed unusually chatty. "You kids heading up to the cabin?" he asked, his tone almost accusatory. Jack nodded. "Yeah, we're staying for the weekend. Supposed to be a great spot for skiing." The man's expression darkened. "Storm's coming in hard tonight. Be careful up there. People disappear in those mountains. Weird stuff happens." Liam, ever the jokester, laughed it off. "Disappear? What, like Bigfoot or something?" The attendant didn't smile. "Just stay indoors. Lock your doors and windows. Don't go wandering." Uneasy but determined to enjoy their trip, they piled back into the car and continued their journey. By the time they reached the cabin, snow was falling heavily and the wind had picked up. The cabin itself was picturesque, a wooden A-frame surrounded by towering pines with smoke curling from the chimney. Inside, it was warm and inviting, with a crackling fire and rustic furniture. The first morning, Anna was the first to step outside. She loved the early mornings and wanted to soak in the serene beauty of the snow-covered forest. As she stood on the porch, sipping her coffee, something caught her eye: footprints in the snow. They started near the edge of the woods and led straight to the cabin. But something was off. There were no tracks leading away. 7. "Hey guys, did anyone go outside last night?" she called. The others joined her on the porch, groggy and bundled in layers. "No," Jack said. "We were all inside." "Why?" Anna pointed to the footprints. They were deep, like someone, or something, had walked through the fresh snow. The group exchanged uneasy glances, but brushed it off as a weird coincidence. Maybe a hiker had passed through before the storm covered their exit tracks. As the day progressed, the weather worsened. The blizzard was in full force by late afternoon, making skiing impossible. Instead, the group huddled inside, playing cards and sharing drinks. It wasn't until evening that the next strange occurrence happened. Liam, while rummaging through the kitchen for snacks, noticed something odd on the frosted window. Words were faintly etched into the glass. "You're not safe." "Very funny, guys," he said, carrying the snacks back to the living room. "What are you talking about?" Maria asked. "The creepy message on the window. Who wrote it?" Everyone denied doing it. Liam's grin faded as he realized no one was admitting to the prank. They all went to the kitchen to see the message, but the heat from inside had melted the frost, erasing the words. Tension crept into the room, but again, they dismissed it. By nightfall, the unease only grew. Maria found strange symbols carved into the wood near the fireplace. They looked old and weathered, but their meaning was unclear. When she showed the others, Sarah suggested it might just be an artistic quirk from the cabin's previous owners. Still, everyone felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere, like they were being watched. The first real terror struck that night. Jack woke up to the sound of faint whispers outside the cabin. He lay still, straining to hear. It sounded like multiple voices, hushed and urgent, but he couldn't make out the words. Slowly, he got out of bed and peered through the window. The snow was falling heavily, but he thought he saw movement near the edge of the woods. "Jack? What are you doing?" Maria's sleepy voice startled him. I thought I heard something outside," he whispered. She joined him at the window but saw nothing. "It's probably the wind. Come back to bed." Reluctantly, Jack agreed, but sleep didn't come easily. The next morning, Liam was gone. His bed was untouched, his boots missing, and his coat was gone from the rack. "This isn't funny," Sarah said, her voice tight with fear. "Where is he?" They searched the cabin and the surrounding area, calling his name. Near the edge of the woods, they found his scarf tangled in a branch. Tracks led deeper into the forest, but were quickly being erased by the falling snow. Jack wanted to follow the tracks, but Anna argued it was too dangerous. "We'll get lost in the storm. We need to wait for help." While searching the cabin for clues, Maria stumbled upon a hidden door in the floor beneath a rug. It led to a small, dusty room filled with old belongings, jackets, boots, and even photographs. One photo stopped them cold. It showed a group of friends standing outside the cabin. They looked eerily similar to Anna, Jack, Maria, Liam, and Sarah. In the background of the photo, a shadowy figure stood among the trees. "What the hell is this?" Jack whispered. The group was shaken, but had no explanation. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. Shadows moved outside the windows, and at one point the doorknob rattled violently, as if someone was trying to get in. By now, the group was on edge, jumping at every noise. They decided to barricade the doors and windows and stay together, but as they were moving furniture, Anna screamed. A gaunt, humanoid figure was staring at them through the window. Its pale, almost translucent skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, and its eyes were hollow black pits. Before anyone could react, the figure vanished into the storm. Desperate, the group tried to leave, but their car was buried in snow. As they trudged back to the cabin, the figure reappeared, chasing them through the snow. It moved unnaturally fast, and its guttural growls sent chills down their spines. They barely made it back inside, slamming the door shut just in time. In a final act of defiance, they set a trap using the fireplace. When the creature forced its way in, they lit a burst of fire using kerosene. The figure let out an inhuman scream and fled into the night, leaving behind only the stench of burnt flesh. By morning, the storm had cleared and a search and rescue team arrived. Only Jack and Sarah were found alive. Anna and Liam were never recovered. The rescue team dismissed their story as hysteria brought on by the storm, but Sarah knew what she saw. As they prepared to leave, Sarah noticed a new photo on the mantel, their group standing outside the cabin. In the background, the shadowy figure loomed. They left, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was still watching, waiting for its next victims. Backcountry skiing is supposed to be the ultimate escape, just you, the snow, and endless wilderness. That's what Emma and Alex were hoping for when they planned their trip to the Rockies. They were experienced skiers, and the idea of exploring untouched powder in a remote part of the mountains seemed perfect. What they didn't know was that their adventure would lead them to a place that should have stayed forgotten. It was late afternoon when they first saw it. They had been skiing for hours, weaving through dense pines, their packs heavy with supplies. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the untouched snow. Emma spotted it first, a faded wooden sign, partially buried and leaning at an odd angle. The words were barely legible under the frost, but they made out something about a resort. "Should we check it out?" Alex asked, grinning. He loved exploring places like this. The older, the better. Emma hesitated. I don't know. It's getting late." "Come on, just for a bit. We might find something cool." Against her better judgment, Emma agreed. They followed what remained of an overgrown trail marked by crumbling wooden posts. After about 15 minutes, the trees thinned and they saw it, an abandoned ski resort. The main lodge stood at the center, its roof sagging under decades of snow. Rusted chairlift towers loomed like skeletons, their cables slack and swaying in the wind. Smaller outbuildings dotted the area, half buried under drifts of snow. It looked like the entire place had been frozen in time. Curiosity got the better of them. They skied up to the lodge and pushed open the heavy wooden doors. The air inside was stale and cold, carrying the faint scent of mildew. The interior was dark, but their headlamps revealed a scene straight out of another era. Dust-covered skis leaned against the walls. Old boots sat in neat rows near the entrance. The reception desk was still stocked with faded brochures advertising luxury mountain retreat. "It's like everyone just left," Emma said, her voice echoing in the empty space. Alex nodded, running his fingers over the guest book on the counter. The last entry was dated over 30 years ago. The writing stopped abruptly mid-sentence. Ventured further inside. The dining area was eerily intact, with chairs knocked over and plates still on tables. In one corner, a child's toy, a small wooden car, lay forgotten on the floor. Emma shivered, but Alex was fascinated. He even found a basement door and couldn't resist opening it. "Alex, don't," Emma warned. "Relax, I'm just checking." The basement was a time capsule of rusted machinery and cobwebs. Alex found an old generator and managed to get it sputtering to life. For a brief moment, the lodge's lights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. That's when they saw the stains. Faint but unmistakable, dark streaks ran along the walls and ceiling, like something had been dragged across them. Emma was the first to hear it, faint laughter, muffled and distant, coming from upstairs. She froze, straining to listen. Alex, did you hear that?" He shook his head. "Hear what?" "Laughter. Upstairs." Alex frowned, but grabbed his headlamp. They climbed the creaking staircase to the second floor. The hallways were lined with dusty doors, some hanging off their hinges. But there was no one there. The laughter had stopped. When they returned to the main floor, Emma glanced outside. Her heart sank. Their ski tracks, which should have been clearly visible in the snow, were gone. The pristine blanket of white was undisturbed, as if they'd never been there. The sun was setting, and the wind was picking up. They decided to head back to their campsite, but the resort had other plans. As they tried to retrace their steps, the landscape around them seemed to shift. Familiar landmarks disappeared, replaced by dense fog and unbroken snow. "We're going in circles," Emma said, panic creeping into her voice. Alex tried to stay calm. "Let's just keep moving. We'll find our way." But they didn't. Their tracks vanished behind them as soon as they were made, leaving no trace of their path. The fog thickened and the temperature plummeted. Then came the sounds, distorted music crackling through the static of an unseen radio, faint whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, and footsteps crunching in the snow just beyond their sight. In their panic, they stumbled back to the lodge. It loomed in the fog like a beacon, though neither of them remembered which direction they had come from. Back inside, they barricaded the doors and windows with whatever they could find. As they searched for more supplies, Emma found an old photograph in the dining room. It showed a group of resort staff posing in front of the lodge. In the background was a shadowy figure, indistinct but unmistakably present. Her hands trembled as she showed it to Alex. "What the hell is that?" he whispered. Before Emma could respond, they heard it, a deep, guttural growl coming from the basement. The lights flickered again, and the temperature inside the lodge dropped even further. Then the growl turned into a low, rasping voice. It spoke words they couldn't understand, but the malice in the tone was unmistakable. "We need to get out of here," Emma said, her voice barely audible. They grabbed their packs and bolted. As they stepped outside, they saw it for the first time. The entity was humanoid, but distorted, its limbs too long and its movements unnatural. Its hollow, black eyes seemed to pierce through them. They ran. The storm was in full force now, snow and wind battering them from every direction. The entity followed, moving unnaturally fast, appearing closer every time they glanced back. Emma fell once, her ankle twisting painfully, but Alex pulled her to her feet. They stumbled through the blinding snow, guided only by the dim light of Alex's headlamp. At last they saw what they thought was the trailhead. Relief surged through them as they approached, but it wasn't the trailhead. It was the lodge. The building was no longer dilapidated. It stood pristine, its windows glowing with warm light. Laughter and music spilled out, inviting and sinister. Emma and Alex stared in disbelief as the doors creaked open, revealing a well-dressed crowd inside. They were frozen in place, their faces stretched into grotesque, permanent smiles. Emma and Alex's names were in the guest book now, scrawled in shaky handwriting. Emma woke up in the same room where they had first entered the lodge. Alex was gone. The distorted laughter echoed through the halls, louder and more insistent. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Outside, the snow continued to fall, erasing all traces of the couple's presence. The lodge waited, silent and hungry, for its next visitors.